Welcome, everyone, to another episode of What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. What's Working is the show that's designed to help you identify the trends that are shaping the workplace, the workforce, and the marketplace around you. We find the people that can tell us about the trends that are influencing their business with the hopes that how they're managing these trends, how they're dealing with them, will make you a little bit better at what it is you do. Not long ago on this show, I made the commitment that going forward, the What's Working show, as well as the other media efforts of my own, are going to be upbeat and positive and just encouraging. This is a response to the year 2020, which we all know was very, very difficult, whether it be the pandemic, whether it be the hurricanes that smashed our part of the world, or whether it be the conversations, the political conversations that plague so many of our relationships. My goal, I'm going to not participate in that. It's going to be good. And if it's a small thing that I can do that will make a small change, then I'm committed to do it. And today we're going to do just that. This is a story of perseverance today. This is a story of beginning something in an area steeped in tradition and doing it differently and finding success regardless. Imagine our part of the world. We live here on the Gulf Coast, and there are many of you who I know enjoy fishing. Imagine someone coming to our part of the world and saying, "Hey, I'm going to teach you a new way to fish." Most of us, I suspect, would be very dubious of this person, this snake oil salesman. We've been doing this our entire lives, we'd say. We don't need somebody from the outside or somebody with a better idea. Heck, we catch all the fish we possibly need. We'd be very skeptical. We'd be very dubious. We have a rich history here of knowing, let's say, fishing. And an outsider or a new idea from an insider is likely going to be regarded skeptically. Well, it's not fishing. It's baseball. This city is the home or the birthplace of 5 Hall of Famers and countless other major league players. In fact, when I returned to Mobile, I guess it's about 12 years ago, I remember having my children going through baseball at Municipal Park and T-ball, etc., and being surprised at the number of former major league players whose children were also going through these same games along with me. They blended into the crowd, but every now and then it would get out that, oh, he played with the Astros, or he was part of the Yankees organization. They never brought attention to themselves, but there was a lot of major league and many more minor league players in our area blending in with the crowd, born and raised here. The point being, our town here in Mobile, Alabama, is steeped in baseball tradition, steeped in what it takes to be successful in baseball. So having a new idea arise in this neck of the woods on a better way to do something when it comes to baseball is opening yourself up to extraordinary ridicule, extraordinary vulnerability. How would you possibly try to teach a new method of baseball in a part of the world that's got so much baseball tradition? And I say this in the relative shadow of Hank Aaron's death. In front of me is a baseball with his signature on it. It's been one of my prized possessions for years. So here we have the home run king, arguable, but in my opinion, yes, the home run king from our part of the world, and in steps somebody teaching a different way of how to bat, of how to throw. And he's using technology to back him up. There are many doubters out there that are pushing against him. Coaches that I know that are saying, no, we know what we're doing here. Yet, you can't deny his success. When we come back from break, we're going to meet this guy that's kind of putting the baseball tradition on ear. He's a humble guy, but he's got the bit in his teeth, I guess, and is teaching new methods to great success. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. We'll be right back.
'64, that's when Keith Air Conditioning opened their doors.
In my family, turn to the experts is more than a tagline. It's a promise. Every Keith technician is an experienced AC professional, and that saves you money. Speaking of money, how about 0% financing for up to 60 months on installations of new Carrier systems? Keith and Carrier, turn to the experts.
Mobile's leading name in comfort since 1964.
License number 83731. I'm Matt Armbruster with Ransom Ministries. We help people in our community that most others have given up on. Please donate your unwanted electronics to Ransom Recycling. We teach life skills, job readiness, and job creation through our electronic recycling program. We take anything with a cord. Find us at ransomministries.com, or you can call us at 251-751-0044.
Think about how people really see you. The kid at the drive-thru just sees a coffee drinker.
Please pull forward.
Your local barista sees the person who loves a smiley face in their latte.
See you next time.
It's kind of the same way with insurance. Other insurance companies just see a customer, but a State Farm agent sees more. They see you as a neighbor. Your State Farm agent is here to get to know who you really are, so they can help life go right.
Call me, State Farm agent Allison Horner, in Mobile at 666-1616.
So I'm sitting in the stands watching my son's JV team play baseball a couple weeks ago, and they're warming up to the season. And next to me is a father of one of the other kids out there, and he talks to me a little bit about the technologies that his son is being taught and what it's done to his batting capabilities. And this boy can hit that ball hard and well and frequently, which is what you want as a batter. So I'm talking to my friends about the success, and he said, my son is learning a non-traditional batting technique. And in fact, we don't even talk about it around here because the coach of my son's team is not for it. He said, you throw your hands at the ball. That's the way you hit the ball. And my friend said, so I'm going to tell you what we're doing, but don't mention it around here. On the line with me is the guy teaching the non-traditional baseball technique. And I want to welcome to the show. This is Adam Heisler. Adam, thank you for your time. Welcome to What's Working.
Hey, thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Once we begin, I want to get into what this non-traditional technique is. And I want to talk to you about how you got to be pretty brave to teach a non-traditional technique in the city of Mobile, Alabama, which is steeped and soaked in baseball. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your playing history, and a little bit about your business. But we'll get into that as well along the way.
Yes, definitely. So I'm from Mobile, Alabama. I played at Baker High School. We were fortunate enough to win back-to-back state championships when I was there. I continued on. I was actually drafted out of high school, chose to decline and go on to college. I went to junior college first at Faulkner State, transferred to South Alabama, was drafted again my junior year, but chose to go back to school to finish up my degree. After my senior season, I signed with the Chicago White Sox and played 4 years professionally with the White Sox and then 2 more years in Winnipeg, Canada. And then I think it was around 2017, it was either a choice of going to play overseas in Mexico or to start my own business of training young athletes. And I chose that I wasn't very good speaking Spanish, so I needed to stay here in town. And I hung up the cleats and started doing something that has been a passion of mine for a long time, and that is coaching and instructing baseball players. So we started the Heisler Heat Baseball Academy here in Mobile in 2017, and we're going on our 4th year now. We're located over on Spring Hill Avenue. And we just train all the athletes from young kids to high school kids to some pro players that come in there. It's just all specialized, individualized training that's going on. It's very popular these days. And we do it with our athletes from a hitting standpoint, a pitching standpoint, fielding, strength and conditioning, anything to kind of help them get better on the baseball field is our ultimate goal.
Did I hear you say you deferred the draft twice? I did. You had the opportunity to be drafted twice and said, no, thank you, I'll wait.
That was correct. So out of high school, I was, I think, the youngest player drafted that year. I was a 17-year-old when I graduated, and I wasn't ready to go out on my own. I think my parents knew that. I knew that deep down. And so I needed to go to college and gain that experience. And I was on the smaller side. I was really fast, but I was on the smaller side. So I needed to enhance my skills. I just changed positions from shortstop, second base to outfield as well. So I knew I needed a little bit more time out there to feel comfortable. My junior year when I did it, I did not see that one coming because everybody knows in the baseball world that when you need to go is your junior year, just because financially you'll get the most amount of money out of your signing bonus. Things unfortunately didn't work out the way that they were going. We were throwing some numbers around back and forth with the Cardinals organization. I thought it was going to be better to go back to school and try to enhance my draft status the following year. Unfortunately, my senior year, I had a torn labrum in my shoulder. So looking back, I wish I would have left, but you never know. I mean, things happen for a reason. I was able to rehab my shoulder and was able to get a chance with the Chicago White Sox, and I can't thank them enough for giving me that chance to live out my dream of playing professional baseball.
You got to think things happen for a reason. Otherwise, you'll go crazy wishing things had happened differently. So I like your attitude in that regard. So one of the words that I use in describing you and your batting techniques that you teach is non-traditional, but I've already heard non-traditional from you in a couple of ways. First, non-traditional that you defer the draft twice. I mean, that's non-traditional. Have you always gone against the system? If I could find some of your old teammates from Baker, would they say, yeah, every rule that was implemented, he was always going against the system? Is this your style?
My style is more just an open mind. So it's funny because every year I came home when I was training, while I was still playing, I was looking for new techniques or just something to enhance my game. I feel like if you're always just stay doing the same exact thing, like you're never going to improve. Now, some things will work, some things won't, but I tell each player individually, now that I'm a coach, is we're going to try different things and see what works best for you. And so I was always a big believer of, I want to try to get better at something. So I'm going to try this that I picked up from somebody else, see how it works for me, give it a couple of months to see if it actually does work. Don't just put it down right away. And then let's kind of transition over and see if it helps my game overall. So I would just say more than anything, I've always had an open mind when it comes to things. Well,
the open mind is highly regarded in every business and every, in every corner of society. We preach an open mind. Baseball, though, is tradition-driven, tradition-bound. And I want to ask you two questions. First, what is your opinion? Why does Mobile, Alabama seem to create so many baseball figures? Why does so much success come out of this town? We got 5 Hall of Famers from Mobile. And second, and I probably should stop stacking these questions on top of you, is the tradition in baseball good or bad? So let's start with Mobile. What's your impression? Why does Mobile have so many baseball players?
I'm going to go first. Mobile's has so many baseball players just from this fact that we live in a very good climate for baseball. So literally we'll have kids that can play 10 months out of the 12 months out of the year that normally teams up in the north don't get to do that. So a buddy of mine I do a podcast with as well, lives in Indiana. They do have 2 months of a high school season and that's it. And then they have 2 months of a summer season. And then basically the baseball's put away. We transition over to football, then basketball is huge up there. So I think number one would just be how often kids can play here. They can get out and practice here. They can play games. There's so much more time spent on the field as opposed to maybe northern climates where they're inside all the time due to the cold weather and the snow. They're not having the accessibility to get out there on the field to enhance their game. So I think that's one of the reasons. To answer your other question, the tradition of baseball. So if you kind of pay close attention to it now, MLB Network does a very good job of kind of trying to bridge the gap between old school and new school. I think old school stuff is still very important, but there's also, just like anything in life, there's new things that come along that we can help enhance the game. I think some baseball viewers get stuck in the same old ways of what's always happened, and they're not very relatable to change. I watch the NFL, I watch the NBA and other sports, and they're willing to try new things a whole lot faster than baseball is. I think it's such a traditional sport. So I would say I'm a fan of the tradition because I was a fan growing up. I love the players, the recognition that they get, but I'm also willing to, hey, let's not try to bunt early on in the game and let's try to outslug some players because these pitchers are throwing nastier and harder than they ever have before. So you can't really just try to single teams to death. And we can get into that later. So now I have to learn how to drive the ball and create extra base hits to drive in more runs because that's ultimately what's going to win ball games.
So Moneyball came out and discussed non-traditional ways of fielding teams. And it was pushed back upon, according to the book and the movie, by the traditional baseball people. In fact, one of my favorite parts of the book, I don't remember whether it was in the movie, is that they would draft someone or take someone onto the team based on their look, their appearance. He looks like a baseball guy. And all these tenured scouts kind of had this look in mind that they felt a baseball guy could look like. And if he looked like that, they would give him the credibility and pull him up to the major leagues. And somebody comes in and says, no, he may have the look, but let's look at the data. Let's look at the numbers. And initially it was this style, this thing of looking at the numbers was reviled. It was pushed back on. You'll never be successful. Now everybody does it. Do you predict the ways that you're teaching, and I want to get out into that, will become the norm as you break away from this tradition-bound sport?
I truly do. So I try to keep up with the MLB as much as possible. And you're starting to see a big shift over to technology, to learning body assessments, to just player development overall. So the teams that have won the past World Series in the last 5 years, Dodgers, Astros, even the Tampa Bay Rays that were there last year, these are teams that are implementing new exercises, new drills into their system, new technology. And there's about a quarter of the teams that haven't made it there yet. And it's pretty well known. They don't speak out about it, who are these teams, but they let them know that they're falling behind. And so I think the more that baseball is going in this direction, the more this stuff is helping. And the biggest thing with the technology is it's helping us understand what is going on. It's just another piece of the puzzle, so to speak. So I need to understand, I want all the pieces I have together to create this great player that I'm looking for, to get the most out of the player. So going back to the money ball, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I remember speaking with a former professional coach of mine at the time in the dugout in between games, and we had just let a guy go. And unfortunately, we let the guy go because it came down to, will he look good in a big league uniform?
Oh, no.
And it was mind boggling. I was like, really? We let a guy go? This guy luckily went overseas, played in Japan, had a successful career over there, and made himself some money, financially set up. Now he's back in the States. But it was just so crazy that it came down to, I can't picture this guy in a major league uniform, so we're going to release him.
Unbelievable.
And even though he had put up the numbers, he had put up the stats, they just were using their vision, just their eyeballs, as opposed to the whole picture. And they made a decision that went in that direction. So it was very surprising to me.
On a number of your YouTube videos, you've got a well-populated YouTube channel. You talk about the technology, and it shows one of the cameras that I want to hear from you when we come back from break, how these things are used. But it shows some of the cameras that you've got that you use to analyze. Now, in golf coaching, all sorts of technology is being used to help the golfer get better. And in the golf community, this seems to be embraced. I took a golf lesson, and it showed me how the weight shifted under my feet, but not only under my feet, but whether it went from my toes to the ball of the foot to the heel of the foot. It was extraordinarily detailed, and an extraordinary computer with a high processing capability that was analyzing my golf swing. But golf is a game where newness is embraced. You need a new club. You need a new ball. You need a new lesson. You need a new, whatever. I remember a trend in glasses. You got to wear these glasses on the green, and you can see the break of the green better. However, baseball is not a implement featured business, right? You've got a glove, you got a bat, and you got a ball. And it limits, in my opinion, how technology can be used. Talk to me, just before we go to break, about the technology that's available, and then we'll talk after the break on how you're using it.
Yeah, so the hitting monitor you're referring to is called the Rapsodo hitting monitor. So basically what it does, my favorite thing about it is it takes visual of what's going on in the batting cage and translates it to the field. So as the player is hitting, literally every time he hits, the ball will appear. It's like a tracker. And so it shows exactly where that ball is going on the field, how hard it's going, what's the launch angle of it, the exit direction, the spins. It's measuring every single batted ball that's hit. So it helps that hitter understand and the coach understand what is going on. So when they get to the field, they know what to expect. It's not a big surprise. Golf, I'm glad you mentioned golf, because me and my baseball buddies talk about it all the time. They're so ahead of the game when it comes to this new technology, and they're so ready to use it to players. Whereas baseball, I think a lot of people, number one, are reserved because they don't know about it, or maybe they haven't done enough research about it, and so they don't want to learn. And it's okay. Some people get stuck in their ways and want to just continue doing the same thing over and over. So it's kind of, we're not worried about that. We're just trying to do this and win ball games. Well, if we can offer a chance to help you win more ball games, I think you would be interested. So I think the biggest thing is you just have to approach it to people and help them understand why this is important to them and what benefits they can see from it.
Adam Heisler is a baseball coach here in Mobile. He's doing some non-traditional things. When we come back from break, Adam, we're going to talk about launch angle, exit velocity, bat speed, and angle of attack. These are words that I've seen coaches flinch when they hear them, and we'll talk about why. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. We'll be right back. Hey, this is Cam Marston. It's this time of year that lots of companies go through their strategic planning process. I'm a fan of a strategic planning model pioneered by Silicon Valley companies called Zoom Out, Zoom In. And one of the key steps in this process is to evaluate your marketplace and determine what the natural headwinds are that might prevent you from getting to your goals in 10 years. 10 years is key. Then list those headwinds. Then list the tailwinds that will naturally push you towards your goals over the next 10 years. Finally, list 2 or 3 things that you can start in the next 4 weeks that will help you deal with the headwinds and maximize the tailwinds. And do these things that you list. Get started on them. This starts you on a trajectory to meet your 10-year goals. Want more help with your strategic planning? Find me online and give me a call. Adam Heisler runs Heisler Heat Baseball Academy here in Mobile, Alabama. He had a professional career, played in high school, played in college, played professionally. Now he's teaching kids like mine and yours how to be successful on the baseball field. Adam, prior to the break, we were talking about, or I mentioned some of the words that are very, in my experience, can be very controversial to some traditional baseball coaches. Let's pick one of them. You pick one of them. I'll list them again. Pick one of them. Tell me what it means and why it's controversial. So here they are. Launch angle, exit velocity, bat speed, angle of attack. Give me one. Tell me why a traditional coach thinks it's controversial.
All right, I'm definitely going at launch angle. So launch angle, I tell people when you speak about it to players or coaches that don't understand, it's almost like saying a swear word to them. They look at you with big eyes like, I can't believe you just mentioned launch angle. Now, what they don't understand is every batted ball, even a bunt, has a launch angle. So what you have to understand is launch angle is a metric. It is not a technique that we use. There is no such thing as a launch angle swing. Launch angle is simply a metric that is used when the bat hits the ball and the ball leaves off the bat. What we tell our guys is, all right, so if you have a negative launch angle, that means a ground ball is about to happen. You're about to hit a lot of ground balls. What's at younger ages, coaches will talk about hitting a lot of ground balls because defenses aren't as well. So it's easier to get on base for them, so to speak, if a team makes an error. But we all know as you keep climbing up in this game, those ground balls eventually turn into outs when you're playing good teams. And to break it down nice and simple is we're looking to hit the ball hard and hit the ball hard in the air. Now, what that means is I want a hard line drive in the air. A lot of people will get confused and be like, Coach, I'm just trying to hit line drives. And I tell them, so are we too. We want to hit line drives. Well, you talk about hitting the ball in the air. I said, well, line drives don't happen on the ground. They happen in the air. So what launch angle does when we use this hitting Rapsodo monitor, we try to track our guys anywhere from 10 degrees to about 28 degrees is like the happy zone. It's where a lot of the hard line drives and extra base hits come from. So the doubles, the triples, the home runs, as well as the hard line drops to the outfield. So we want to have these guys understand that when they do hit a ground ball, it's almost by accident. Now, ground balls will become hits sometimes. They'll find a hole every now and then. But to keep it simple is there's 5 players in the infield, including the pitcher. There's only 3 in the outfield that have a lot of ground to cover. So my chances mathematically have a better chance of getting the ball to the outfield to get a hit, ultimately maybe get extra base hit out of it. And now I'm at second or third, which is easier to score as opposed to just trying to get single after single after single after single. So launch angle is definitely the one I wanted to attack right away and help people understand that it is a metric and it is nothing to do with a technique. It is simply just measuring everything. And to end it off, a bunt has a launch angle too. So if you bunt, it will tell you -2 is your launch angle, and then you can kind of go on about your day.
All right. So let me back up. My head's spinning. 10 to did you say 28 degrees is what you want as a launch angle?
10 to 28 degrees is like that happy zone. Yes, sir.
Is the happy zone. And do you have a velocity? I mean, is velocity off the bat plus launch angle equals hit? Is that right?
Yes, exactly. So the harder you hit the ball, the harder we hit the ball. So the exit velocity, that's the next one. That's honestly the number one thing we use our hitting Rapsodo monitor used for is how hard are we hitting the ball? Okay. So now the higher that number goes on exit velocity, the higher my angles can start to go on my launch angle. But remember, we're not trying to go anywhere over 30 if possible, because then it will turn into just a routine pop-up. So we're trying to master that happy area zone while still hitting the ball hard. Just because you hit the ball in the 10 to 28 range and it's 60 miles an hour that's maybe will not relate to a hit because you didn't hit it hard enough physically. So now that's where the exit velocity comes into it.
I get it. I'm in your camp. I see the reason for it. I get it. However, here's what I want you to do. Stand in the shoes of the traditional coach and tell me what he might say to this conversation.
He will say that you're teaching my guys to hit a bunch of pop-ups or lazy fly balls. And what we're not doing is doing that, number one. So I think a lot of people, because there are stigma that will go around that, oh, if you train there, you hit a bunch of pop-ups. And what they'll see is they'll watch a hitter in the batting cage. Okay, so now we got to use our imagination here. The batting cage, most batting cages are 40 feet long at the most. Usually 40, 50 feet somewhere in there. Some have 60 so they can throw live pitches in there. But anyway, we're closed inside. So the ones that look good to us visually are the ones that are line drive straight to the back of the net. But what we've got to remember is if we're hitting a line drive straight to the back of the net that is 40 feet long, like we're not even getting a ball that will go past the pitcher in the air. And so now all this time we've been training like line drive, back of the net, back of the net, back of the net. And then we get on the field and our players are wondering why we can't hit the ball to the outfield. Well, because they're not training to do it. And so what we'll do is we'll start off on the tee, just to kind of run you through is a tee. We'll start off low line drive. And then as they start to get warm, we'll work our angles up higher and higher. And then we finish off every day with an extra base hit round. And you have to try to dominate your angles, your launch angles. So very simply, you can just walk it out and measure it. Hey, if I need to leave this halfway through the cage, like in the air, and that's what's going to be that double to the outfield. So now this is where that Rapsodo hitting monitor really helps, because where a kid may visually look like he's hitting the straight up into the cage, this monitor is showing him that actually that's the one that's traveling 358 feet in the gap. And so now okay, now I get it. So I think the biggest thing is when coaches watch kids hitting the cage is start to look at where they're hitting these things on the field. Don't just get sucked up into tunnel vision of we're in this small cage, and if I hit anything to the top of it, it looks like a pop-up.
Yeah. All right. So we can add into this factor, of course, that the pitch is going to be hard to hit, right? You got a fastball coming. I know you coach anywhere from your videos. You coach young kids up through. You mentioned some pro players that come in. So the velocity of the ball coming in makes a factor of trying to hit it. And then we've got the type of pitch. It could be a slider. It could be a curve. It could be something else. Are you working with the batter as well to say, okay, we want a launch angle between this, and here's how you hit a curve ball like that? Does it get that granular?
Yeah, so basically from that standpoint, we love talking about this because a lot of guys don't talk about it enough, is we have a pitching machine in there that can throw fastballs, sliders, curveballs, changeup, whatever we want to throw. We can visually use this pitching machine that these kids have to train to hit off of. So we'll have days where we're strictly working on hitting a right-handed breaking ball. And now it's, all right, I'm trying to get the swing down first. All right, I want to track it, make sure I'm hitting the ball hard. And then we'll put you on the monitor to see where we're actually driving these breaking balls. So now we're killing two birds with one stone of working our field, working our angles and our exit speed, but also working on a pitch we're about to face. Because what we really talk about more than anything is kind of bridging the gap between old school and new school, where old school stuff was important because people did it for so long. But what are some new ways we can add everything together? So a lot of places where you can run into problems with this technology on a monitor where you're hitting is almost turning it into home run derby, where you're basically lobbing it up to them, just letting them see how far and how hard they can hit it. That's one thing we definitely do not do. Every time we're doing something, it is a challenge. Like, I'm throwing live to a hitter. I'm trying to get him out. He's competing against me. We have a machine that's trying to strike him out, try to get him out, all this stuff to help him compete to what he's about to face on the field, because we know when we're going against the pitcher in the game, he's trying to get us out. He's not trying to make us look good. And so I think that's a big eye opener when parents bring their kids in there where they see their kids struggle a little bit. And we tell them it's good. They need to learn how to struggle in here because the game's not easy. So we've got to train them to understand that what is going on, how they can make these adjustments, and how to handle failure, most importantly.
So there's a coach out there right now who's listening and saying what these kids need to do, all this technology. I mean, they got their phones and their computers and they're playing video games, and we're adding more technology to their lives. Well, what we need to be doing is reducing the technology in their lives. And this coach is saying all they need to do is, and I'm not exactly sure what this means, but I hear it, throw their hands at the ball. React to that for me.
Yes. So it's a very common term that's used. All right. So most importantly, baseball is extremely hard. Hitting a baseball is extremely hard. And so I think when parents and coaches, when we see kids swing and miss, automatically the biggest things we hear are keep your head on the ball, or like throw your hands at the ball, make contact. Well, I promise you that the kid is trying to. He just didn't do it on that pitch. And so as we look at it from afar, is maybe his head was on there. He just swung underneath it, or he swung above it and just missed it. So throw the hands, so to speak, is basically take your body out of it and just use your hands, and you have good hand-eye coordination. The hand-eye coordination is very important. I'm not saying that it's not, but as the athlete gets older, they have already built up years and years of hand-eye coordination from 8 to 14. Now they're 15 years old. They're learning how to move their bodies. They're working out. They're conditioning. They're throwing medicine balls fast. So now that they have the hand-eye coordination, let's add another piece of the puzzle of letting them understand how they use their body. So we put our players through body assessments because every player is different, and what their guys' strengths, their weaknesses are. Not everybody in our facility is doing the same exact thing. They don't have the same exact swing because they all don't move the same. So now when we add the body with it, we already have the hand-eye coordination, the body's with it. Now we're going to do our visual training of tracking breaking balls and fastballs and all these other pitches, and we're putting this all together while trying to record. You mentioned the technology of kids, more than anything, is use your phone. We use phones all the time to video live at-bats, live swings going on. Now you can be your own coach and start to compare your swings as opposed to always just playing the guessing game of what you felt, so to speak. Because one thing I say is the eye in the sky never lies. So if you watch video, if you watch video and you may swear that your hands aren't dropping before you're trying to swing, and then you see the video and your first motion is you start at the shoulder and then you go straight down to your stomach area and then you try to swing.
Yep.
So that's incorrect. Yes, we need to fire from right there at the connection at the top of our shoulder to be faster to the ball.
Is it reasonable to expect, Adam, that with all this technology, with all this new training, with a new generation buying into this, that we're going to see batting averages gradually climb so that a 350, 400 batting average is not going to be remarkable anymore? Ted Williams is no longer going to be unique in his batting average.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I think it honestly might be towards the opposite. And I say that with all this stuff is great, but man, these pitchers, if you sit down with people listening and just watch a game at night, like every guy is throwing 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
They have sliders breaking all over the place. So I don't know if it will correlate to higher batting average, but I think what it will correlate to is more extra base hits and slugging percentage, meaning more doubles, triples, and home runs, as opposed to maybe a lot of the singles that were going on back in the old days. And I go back to just basically, I think teams are understanding these pitchers are so difficult. It's hard to get 4 hits in a row versus, hey, I get a walk and then I hit a home run and now I'm winning 2-0 versus, hey, trying to single and try to get the guy in. So it's a tough question. I just think Ted Williams him and Barry Bonds are my 2 favorite hitters of all time. I will say that. And it's all starts with them as their vision was so good. You can read stories about Ted Williams back when he went to World War II as an air fighter. Like he had 20/12 vision. He saw the ball really well. Yeah. That's another thing I don't think it gets talked about enough in the baseball world. We have our guys do eye checkups once a year just to make sure the eyes are working. There's a new technology that come out. You mentioned it. We haven't used it yet, but it's called Win Reality. You can literally, with your device at home, if you have a PlayStation or whatever, play this game on your phone where a pitcher's throwing live to you. When he throws it, you have to say, was it a ball or strike, and what kind of pitch was it? So now you're being able to train on your own, like in this 3D reality world. So it's just the stuff they're coming out with is unbelievable.
One of the things that we haven't talked about is the training and the discipline and the weightlifting and everything that's creating pitchers these days. Our focus has been entirely on batters, but pitchers have certainly benefited from the same stuff as well. And one of my favorite Ted Williams stories, and I don't know if this is true or not, but the pitcher throws it in. Williams is in the batting box, comes right down the middle, and he doesn't swing. And the catcher goes, that was a strike. And the umpire goes, nope, he didn't swing. Couldn't be a strike. It's like
I believe that 100%.
Counting on his eyes versus the umpire's eyes. All right,
Yep,
Adam Heisler
right.
and I are in a conversation, which I am loving, by the way, because I love to watch and talk baseball. When we come back, Adam, I want to talk to you about the uphill climb of presenting these new technologies and what some sort of my business listeners can take from this when they've got an idea, when they've got evidence that what they're doing is working. what you did when you saw it was working and kept going, perhaps in the face of some pretty big headwinds. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Cam Marston, host of What's Working. My Carrier Infinity system is quiet, energy efficient, and runs like a dream. To keep it running smoothly, I rely on a maintenance plan from Keith Air Conditioning. With a Keith maintenance plan, your home or business receives discounts and 24/7 priority service. Give Keith Air Conditioning a call today at 251-476-3610 or visit keithair.com. Keith and Carrier. Turn to the experts.
Think about your home. What do you see? Do you just see 2 stories or the stories of your toddler's first steps? Now think about your car. Do you see an odometer reading or your kids reading in the back seat? Other insurance companies just see a house. They just see a car. But a State Farm agent sees what your home and your car really mean to you. So why not give them the protection they deserve?
You can reach me, State Farm agent Allison Horner, at AllisonHorner.com.
It's Cam again. Each Friday, my 3-minute commentaries called Keeping It Real are broadcast on Alabama Public Radio at 7:45 a.m. and 4:45 p.m. For 3 years, I've shared my thoughts and insights on the world and on life as I watch it go on around me. They've won a few statewide and national awards, and I really enjoy them. My goal for the commentaries? I simply want them to make you nod at something that you recognize or smile, or maybe chuckle to yourself. Our world faces a shortage of good intentions these days, and my Keeping It Real commentaries are my effort to help fill this void. Search for Keeping It Real with Cam Marston in your Facebook search bar or on your favorite podcast app, and I hope you enjoy them. Adam Heisler is the president, the owner, the boss, the runner of Heisler Heat Baseball Academy, based here in Mobile. Lots of YouTube videos out there, folks, and very active on social media. I think you can find him fairly easily to see what he's up to. Before the break, Adam, we were talking about trying to present a new idea in a culture where these ideas are not perhaps embraced. And my show, of course, What's Working, is focused on workplace, workforce, and marketplace trends. One of the things that I know my listeners struggle with is they have an idea that they're trying to implement, yet their teams, their subordinates, their customers perhaps are in an attitude of we've never done it this way before. And the ways we've previously done it are working just fine. Yet they've got a better idea. You went through this as you brought your technologies and ideas to, like I've said a number of times, a city steeped in baseball. Give me your thoughts, or tell me your story perhaps, on how you introduced these ideas and against the headwinds kept going.
Yeah, and where it all started. So when I was still currently playing with the Chicago White Sox organization, I remember we were doing a very specific drill one day in spring training. And I just remember asking my coach, like, hey, coach, why are we doing this one? And his answer was, we just always have done it. And that's when the wheels started turning in my brain of, what does that even mean? I don't understand. We've always done it, so we're just going to keep doing it. There's not an explanation. And so that's when it really started. And I started to study the best hitters in the game, the best hitters in the world. And I'm watching them repeatedly, and I'm noticing they're not doing things that people were teaching at the time. And you mentioned in the other set, attack angle. So a lot of attack angle basically is you want to approach the ball slightly uphill, not a big thing. It's slightly uphill as you're making contact through the ball. And that's all based because the pitcher is on top of a mound throwing downhill to us. So we have to meet the plane of the pitch. And so a lot of kids, younger kids, about 4 years ago would come in and they would have these negative attack angles. They were almost coming down at the ball like a chop swing and hitting a lot of ground balls or either back spinning balls straight up in the air, and they would just get stuck in the air. And so what we did to give our chances a higher chance to make success with these hitters is worked on getting a bat path that worked slightly uphill and kept them on plane longer. And they started seeing more success of getting hits out of these because their bat's in the zone a long time. Ted Williams talked about this in his book. And well, anyway, so to transition it over, when we start doing this, we're seeing a lot of success, especially with young athletes, because they were doing it, I would say, the incorrect or the most incorrect way that they were doing before. And they made this change, and all of a sudden they're seeing their numbers start to go through the roof. The parents are happy. The kids are excited. They're hitting home runs at 12 years old, 13, 14, that I never did when I was that age. I think I didn't hit my first home run until I was in high school. And I'm watching these guys have success hitting runs at such young ages. And it's like, man, this is awesome. Well, now it starts to get to where they go to their high school and their coaches later on when they get a little older, and they're still stuck doing maybe these same old drills that have been around since 1970 or 60. And they don't know why they're doing it. They're just doing it just because they always have. And so now they're getting critiqued by this coach, like, no, we're going to do it this way. Well, the hitter's now in an imbalance because he's had a lot of success doing it one way. And now his coach, who ultimately writes the lineup, is telling him he needs to do it another way. And now they're kind of fighting against themselves. Now the game is extremely hard on them. And so that was hard. It was a struggle early on because I didn't want – these kids are ultimately playing for high school coaches, and I want to be on the same team with them. I'm not going against them in any means. I've had coaches come talk to me, like we talk about hitting, talk about development, and they've been amazing conversations. But unfortunately, there's only been 4 of those conversations. And I would love to have a convention every year where the high school coaches come around, we spit out new ideas, just anything we can do to keep this game of baseball improving even more. And not saying that my way is the right way, but let's all talk and throw out ideas and see what is the best way to develop these kids. Because I don't want these kids to get to high school and now they're fighting what they've been training since they've been with us versus what their high school coach wants them to do. And it's kind of like a back and forth thing. I just wanted everybody to be on the same page. We're on the same team because ultimately we're here for the kids, and we all want the kids to succeed at the highest of levels because this is where it all starts with them. We can do technology and strength and conditioning all we want, but it all comes down to that athlete of how dedicated they are and what they ultimately do on the field, because they're the ones that are actually doing the performing. We're just like that very small 1% of them that's helping them perform to their highest level.
So there's some tension. I can understand how there could be some tension. The kids are playing for their high school coach. Their high school coach wants something different than what you're teaching them. Yet your teaching methods are proven in a short amount of time. They're working in a short amount of time. Is there ever a point where you look at the kid and say, listen, your coach is really against what I'm doing here. Your best bet is to stop taking my lessons if you want to keep playing for your team, because your coach, and here's what I don't know. Your coach still wants you to throw your hands at the ball. And I'm telling you, launch angle or angle of attack, I think your best move is probably to go work for your coach and after the season come back to me. Have you ever had to do something like that?
We've had to do that a couple of times, and it's every time they come back after their season is over, they come in and they regret that they did it. And I tell them, like, number one is it happens. We all go through things, like it happened for a reason, like we talked about earlier. So let's figure out a way to get by this. So now I have a rule with my hitters that when they leave our facility at their practices and their coaches, whether it's travel ball or high school, is like, I don't even want you talking about your swing. And when I do that, it's to help protect them. And because when they start to mention things that they're trying to do, maybe to somebody that doesn't know, that coach may get offended right away. And we're not trying to do that. We're not trying to put that kid in that situation. But if a kid's trying to tell a coach something, hey, I'm working on coiling in my back hip to get my load right. Say the coach doesn't know. So now he's like, oh, well, that sounds like a big league move. Why are you trying to do that? You saw it on TV. And then now the kid's in an uncomfortable situation. So just to kind of eliminate all that, our rule now is don't even mention it and talk about it outside. Like, you know what works for you. And if the coach tells you to, hey, hit a ground ball to the right side right here because we're working on getting the runner over, you're good enough. You can do that. We're not saying don't ever do that, because there's going to be a time that you have to in the game, maybe to win a game or get a guy over. So hitters are becoming more mature and they're becoming confident in what they're doing because they're not fighting that battle of who's right, who's wrong, or my coach is saying this, my coach is saying that. So these guys now are really just kind of staying to themselves. They'll use a couple key words. What we talk about is like, hey, I'm just coach. I'm trying to stay inside the ball, drive the ball hard. And these coaches are, okay, I see what you're working on. Whereas before, when we first started, maybe these kids were trying to spit out all the information they were learning to look smart to these guys, but it was kind of backfiring. So It's gotten a lot better now that we've kind of just kept the close communication. And, hey, what is your coach saying you're struggling with? Okay, so let's try to find a way to blend those two together, because ultimately, like I said earlier, he writes the lineup. I do not. Right. So he's going to be the one that wants to get you in that lineup. So you have to prove that you can do this. And he's like, okay, so we buy into it. We know what we're working on. And now the hitter starts to understand what exactly works for them too. And we really encourage them to keep hitting journals too, so they can write their ideas down and write what they're feeling, write their adjustments they're making. So now they can kind of help coach themselves, because I played high school ball. You have 20 something kids on a team with 2 or 3 coaches. It's very hard to get work in with every single one of them. And so these kids are now learning how to work on their own. And the biggest thing is I just don't want kid not to be able to get extra work in that he's not getting at the practice, because there's so many kids there. When it comes, hey, Coach Adam, I need to work tonight. I'm really struggling with the breaking ball. We'll come in for an hour. We'll set up the breaking machine, and I don't want you to leave until you feel like you've mastered it.
Yeah.
Where I don't want them to feel discouraged that they can't come because it's going to interflict with their high school season.
When will you know, Adam? Again, non-traditional methods, a little bit of uphill struggle, headwinds against you on these non-traditional methods. How are you going to define success? Is success simply having the baseball academy? Is success when the coaches are coming to you saying, hey, teach us what you're teaching them? What is success going to look like for you?
I'm glad that you hit on that, because I think success looks like to me is just continue to pass down knowledge and pass along knowledge. And more than importantly is learn. I love to learn from coaches. I go visit facilities. I do a podcast with my buddy in Indiana. We talk once a week about baseball development and new stuff. We don't always agree on everything. And I think these conversations are very good that you must have. So I think more than anything is just continuing to pass down this knowledge and serve these kids and let them get the best knowledge I have. That way they can try to reach their ultimate potential, whatever their ultimate potential is. I mean, yes, all the great stories of you trained a guy that made it to the pros is so cool and everything, but I'm just as excited about that 10-year-old that he used to bat last at Park Ball. And now Coach Adam, he bats fourth, he bats third. He's one of the best players on the team. Like, that is the coolest stuff about what we do. It's because we got those kids to reach their potential that they maybe never knew about until they started to learn new methods and new ways of training. Excellent.
Excellent. Positive note to finish on. Adam Heisler is the president, the runner, the boss, the CEO, the groundskeeper, everything else, I'm sure, Adam, of Heisler Heat Baseball Academy. Adam, tell people how they can find you.
Yes, you can find us on our website, HeislerHeatBaseball.com. Sign up for the newsletter. We send out a newsletter each week about what's going on. Our YouTube channel, Heisler Heat Baseball, Instagram at Heisler Heat Baseball. I'm very popular and big on Twitter. You can find me at AdamHeis6 or Heisler Heat Baseball on there as well. And same thing with our Facebook page, Heisler Heat Baseball Academy.
Excellent. Adam, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much, my friend, and good luck. Keep up the good fight.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, folks, we'll be back with final comments in just a moment. You're listening to What's Working. I'm Cam Marston.
A cool thing happened back in '64. That's when Keith Air Conditioning opened their doors. And ever since then, they've earned your family's trust, fixing your AC when it bites the dust. So call Keith Air Conditioning, they're #1. Keith Air Conditioning, they get it done. Award-winning service done with pride. With Keith, you're gonna sleep in comfort tonight.
3 generations and 2 names you can count on, Keith and Carrier. Hi, this is Brent Keith. Turn to the experts is not just a tagline in my family, it's a promise. Every technician is an experienced air conditioning professional. Their money-saving experience and expertise diagnoses your problem accurately and efficiently. Speaking of money, we're offering $25 off our introductory price for a total comfort maintenance plan. And ask about our specials on new Carrier systems. Keith and Carrier, the experts you turn to.
Mobile's leading name in comfort since 1964.
License number 83731.
My goodness, that was fun. My goodness, that was fun. We're going to finish off today's episode with one of my Keeping It Real commentaries that aired in 2019 about football, which I tried to play as a child. It'll be the last part of the show. If you want to hear the show again, you can find it as a podcast. You can find it at whatsworkingcam.com. Forward the link to other people if you feel they should listen to it. And the Keeping It Real thing you're going to hear in a moment was aired in 2019. You can find those as a podcast as well. John Thompson is the show's producer. Have a good week, everybody.
On today's Keeping It Real, Cam Marston remembers his days of playing football in grade school and how happy he is that those days are over.
It's the end of the football season now, and during nearly every broadcast, some former player reminisces about their playing days. Those days were character-building experiences, they say. They talk about how they wish they were out there still playing. Not me. I played football as a kid. I was never very good. TV commentators credit top-tier football players with the word explosive, like a big lineman has explosive power, or a running back has explosive speed. A linebacker delivers hits with explosive impact. Nothing about me has ever been remotely explosive. I don't explode. I never have. It's not in my DNA. I guess I was doomed from the start. I learned that red-faced, spittle-spewing men, often grossly overweight, screaming in my face, aren't motivational. They are, in fact, unmotivational. And I remember telling one such coach during a drill, hey, how about a little perspective? It's just footwork, after he spewed forth in my face about something. Well, this led to more spewing and more spittle, this time much closer. And I remember thinking, poor man, I bet he's unhappy. Football taught me that I'm not all that fond of lots of touching with lots of strangers and touching each of them a lot. My job was to smash my body against someone else's, both of us hot and slick with sweat, and continuing this effort indefinitely until I heard a whistle. And as a lineman, I was expected to do this every single play. If I did it well, this other person and I often finished on the ground in a pile in the dirt. Our slick, sweaty bodies commingled in a heap, with us breathing heavily on each other. I was then supposed to pop up and do it again. Which leads me to another thing. I don't like getting up off the ground over and over and over again. Outside of football, falling to the ground is generally frowned upon. Playing football, though, if I didn't fall a lot, I was told I wasn't working hard enough. So I would fall, commingled with a sweaty, heavy-breathing stranger, or risk a spittle-spewing tirade from an irrational, red-faced, and obese man who is, perhaps, unhappy. And I was assured that this was fun. Now, slapping friends hard and in the head is generally frowned upon too, and is never celebratory nor congratulatory, unless you make an interception. This happened to me once. The ball somehow landed in my hands, and I had the sense to run it the other way. The whistle blew, and my best friends and favorite people pounded my head repeatedly. I remember thinking, wow, I'll never do that again. Watching football with me today, I'll hoot and holler with the best of them. But if you turn and say, man, wouldn't you love to be out there doing all that again? I'll smile and nod. But inside, no. Good Lord, no. I'm Cam Marston. I'm just trying to keep it real.
To hear more of Cam Marston's commentaries, search for Keeping It Real on your favorite podcast app or find them on Facebook.